Hi everyone, today we're going to talk about my favorite of personality traits, and that is neuroticism, the pain circuit in your brain, and what to think about if you are high in neuroticism. Alright, here we go. So what is neuroticism? Well, like I said before, it's the pain circuit, and Freud coined it as being emotional unstable. That means that you have an easier time to feel a bad feeling or anticipate pain, like anxiety, getting angry quickly, and being vulnerable, getting offended, and sticking with that feeling for a longer period of time. And that will make your heart go nuts and raise your blood pressure. And that is why neurotics don't live as long as non-neurotics. So people with high neuroticism or emotional instability are more likely to interpret ordinary situations as threatening and minor frustrations as hopelessly difficult. Their negative emotional reactions tend to persist for usually long periods of time, which means they're often in a bad mood. These problems in emotional regulation can diminish a neurotic's ability to think clearly, make decisions, and cope effectively with stress. And I bet you know people around you in your vicinity that are high in neuroticism. And I mentioned that in the emotional video that I did a while back, that, like they say here, you can't see clearly when you're having an emotion because your brain has locked you out from all the memories and information in your brain that you've stored before that has anything to do with any other sort of information. You'll only access information that's connected to that emotion that you're experiencing. So if you're feeling angry right now and it persists during that time, and especially like Freud is stating, if it continues for a longer time, imagine how incapacitated you are during that time. You can only get information from your own brain that is about anger. Imagine if you get upset at work and get angry if you're high neurotic there. Will you be able to do your job effectively, even though you're conscientious? No, you won't. So that's a problem for you, and it's a problem for your company that you're working for. That is also a reason why it's good for you to actually go and take care of it. Like I said, you can change this trait. You can actually be non-neurotic or low in it, since we all have some neuroticism. But people do differ when they react to different situations. And then we have the opposite side of the spectrum, which is not so emotional unstable. And that is me. And my future wife-to-be. You see, you can be emotionally non-reactive. I can get angry, so can she. But we're not neurotic in that regard that will explode and it will stay with us for a longer period of time. It might have been so for me previously when I was younger, but I worked through that and now it's gone. So you see, it doesn't necessarily mean that if you are high in neuroticism, emotional instability, that you can't do anything about it, because you can. If you put your mind to it, you can actually change and lead a calmer, happier, more enjoyable life. Not paying attention to things that makes you upset, basically, and that has no value in your life whatsoever. The subcategories of neuroticism are as follows: anxiety, anger, depression, self-consciousness, immoderation, and vulnerability. Anxiety is the fight or flight system in your brain, the amygdala, a little tiny part in your brain. And it's easily triggered and make you nervous, fearful of the future, scared, and all those things. And that's what I always refer to anticipating pain in your brain. That's the pain circuit. People that are low in anxiety don't go around being fearful about the future, what's going to happen, or if they're going to meet someone that they're going to be scared about it. Then you have anger. People who score high in anger can either have IED, they explode basically in anger pretty quickly, and it stays longer. Then again, there's different science on that, and Paul Ekman, for example, that is a scientist that studies emotions and have done so for 20 somewhat years, and the facial expressions. He says that there is no conclusive evidence right now that determines how long a feeling will linger and how, or short, or how intense or low intensely the feeling will be. He hasn't spotted a single prevalent sort of evidence for that yet, but he's still working through that data. There needs to be more science on that by other people than Paul Ekman to actually determine whether or not Paul Ekman is right or wrong. But at the time, Paul Ekman is the leading expert on when it comes to emotions. And intermittent explosive disorder is basically when you get angry very, very quickly for something that is not very important, and then you start smashing things or screaming and yelling. Once again, you're locked into your brain circuit or personality of anger, and you can only get access to information that makes you more angry. When you can't control that, you become dangerous basically to the ones around you. And that's why you need to seek help from that. People who are emotionally unstable are very sensitive of being treated unfairly and feel resentful and bitter when they feel they're being cheated on. Bitterness is what you see in the United States when someone picks up a gun and goes and kills people. That's the end game of bitterness. And that is why you should pay attention to if you're high in neuroticism, because bitterness will make your life worse. And here's a good way of seeing how the personality traits are interconnected and how complicated this is, because you only see the ones that has a specific type of combination of personality when they get angry. But you need to understand that this scale measures the tendency to feel angry, whether or not the person expresses annoyance or hostility depends on the individual's level of agreeableness. So like I talked about in the agreeableness video, if you're a woman that is high in agreeableness, you will not show hostility, but you might be feeling angry, but you're not showing it. And low scores do not get angry very easy. Depression. The scale measures the tendency to feel sad, dejected, and discouraged. And if you're high in that, you lack the energy and having difficulty initiating activities. It doesn't mean that you won't do things, but you'll have a hard time doing them. And low scores tend to be free from these depressive feelings. Depression, which you all probably know about, is one of the most talked about personality sides of a person, and that one is escalating within society today, especially in younger people, in children, in schools. And you can see that from the prescriptions being signed both to boys and to girls. You need to understand that these are also interconnected to other mental illnesses, so you need to take care of them. Some can actually be cured by cognitive behavioral therapy, because cognitive behavioral therapy does reroute your brain within 6 months. That has been shown through MRI. But you can actually change. Never forget that. You can actually change if you want to and make it happen. Because everything is about you wanting to change. Self-consciousness. It's not a word that is easily interpreted, so I'll read it for you. Self-conscious individuals are sensitive about what others think of them. Their concern about rejection or ridicule causes them to feel shy and uncomfortable around others. They're easily embarrassed and often feel ashamed. The fears that others will criticize or make fun of them are exaggerated and unrealistic. But their awkwardness and discomfort may make these fears a self-fulfilling prophecy. On the other hand, if you have low scores, so in contrast, they do not suffer from the mistaken impression that everyone is watching and judging them. They do not feel nervous in social situations as well. What I just read about is the notion that people speak about when they say, don't draw the devil on the wall, because you'll move towards it and that will be a self-fulfilling prophecy. That's a good indication. If someone always speaks about, this will happen if we do that, this will happen if we do this, or this isn't possible, this is going to lead to that, that's drawing the devil on the wall, and that's self-fulfilling prophecy, because that's what you think about, and that's what's going to happen because you're going to make it happen. It's sort of like, I am afraid, I'm so anxious that I think that you're a horrible person, or that you're going to be horrible when you get angry, so I'm going to push you towards being angry, and when you do, I'm going to leave you. That's neuroticism. That's self-consciousness. You're making it happen because you're afraid of it. That's a bad thing, because you can't live a life like that. Immoderation. Immoderate individuals feel strong cravings and urges that they have difficulty resisting. They tend to be oriented towards short-term pleasures and rewards rather than long-term consequences. And low scores, if you're low in that, they do not experience strong, irresistible cravings, and consequently do not find themselves tempted to overindulge. So you see how immoderation is connected to binge eating, binge drinking, doing things too much. That's not conscientiousness. That is impulse control. That's something different. So don't mix them up. Once again, it is very complicated. Let me remind you about the 205, I think it's trillion different combinations of personalities. Don't think that you know them. Don't think that you understand yourself. That is why there is a profession for it called therapy. Then we have the last one called vulnerability. And if you're high in that, you're experiencing panic, confusion, and helplessness when under pressure or stress. Low scores feel more poised, confident, and clear thinking when stressed. I'm low. Anyhow, that's the 6 subcategories. If you are a neurotic, high in neuroticism, would you be suited to be a police officer? Probably not. Would you be suited working with security, with people in dangerous situations? Probably not. Should you work with children? Probably not. Will you have a sustainable, longer relationship with someone? Probably not. and here's the thing, there's a ton of science on this. People that are neurotics choose the bad thing over the good thing. And they are inactive, as the science says. But the inaction means that you'll choose drugs, quick pleasures, like the moderation part. You'll choose the bad part, going for a bad boy, going for the bad girl, instead of sticking with the better option in a relationship. You want excitement from it. That's the bad part of neuroticism. You'll be on. Here's the one single best predictor of neuroticism. Kids with more than one partner, on and off on relationships because you can't hold it together more than 2 or 3 months and then you need to get off it. You can't function. A neurotic person will not feel gratitude for the things that they have, because the pain circuit will remind them of the pain, even though there is nothing to be afraid of. They're going to make it happen through the personality. And neuroticism is connected to bipolar, borderline, post-traumatic stress disorder, and you can name a lot of more of those problems. And if a neurotic person even singles themselves out and stay solitary by themselves, then paranoia increases. They get more paranoid. So you can see how bad neuroticism is. So when you speak about it's good to feel feelings, well, yes, that's human. But is it really that good for you that you imagine it is? No, it's not. It's actually detrimental to your health and will become a problem to your surroundings. Other bad things about neuroticism is that we find the second narcissist within the neuroticism trait, and it's called being a vulnerable narcissist. They are never wrong. They sit at home and justify their way of living and their thinking, and they are actually entitled to be what they are, but they do it quietly at home, so you don't spot them in a work environment. But you can see which ones run to the manager and complains all the time and get offended. That is neuroticism. If someone gets easily angered or afraid of you for no simple reason, that's neuroticism. So it's very easy to spot it. Smokers, for example, neurotics, probably, most likely. You can't say that they all are that, but the probability is very high. Neuroticism is a sad trait. Very sad, because people suffer the most from it. You get high blood pressure from it. European heart condition will follow, and people actually die sooner for being neurotics because it goes for the heart. It's not the personality itself, but what the personality causes that makes you suffer from it in the long run. And then there's science that supports that across the world, women are, just like in conscientiousness, women are a 0.5 higher than men in the normal distribution curve, which means that the top is 0.5 higher than for males. But in general, most women and men are the same in the neuroticism trait. Of course, there's loads more to talk about when it comes to neuroticism and how it affects people's lives, but I'll leave it for this time. And if you liked it, I hope you do put a thumbs up or a thumbs down. If you didn't like it, write a comment, even though you didn't like it. Write what you didn't like about it, so I'll know and make it better next time. And I will be getting back to neuroticism in future videos. But if you're interested in the last personal trait called openness, stay tuned for the next one. I'll see you in that one, hopefully. Cheers.